The stars above had always been a source of wonder, a silent testament to the vastness of the universe. For centuries, civilizations across the galaxy had flourished, each with their own rich histories and technologies. But now, an eerie silence hung over the galaxy, as if something terrible was brewing in the depths of space. The quiet was broken by a broadcast that would change everything. A voice, cold and emotionless, echoed through every transmission station, every ship's comm system, and every home across the galaxy. It was a warning, one no one had expected to hear. The Zorathians, a race so terrifying that even the most advanced beings in the galaxy feared them, were on the move. Their fleet had already wiped out dozens of worlds, leaving nothing but devastation in their wake. The planet-destroying warships they commanded were unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. And now, the Zorathians were coming for the last stronghold of resistance, the Galactic Council. For generations, the Galactic Council had been the symbol of hope, an organization formed to protect the galaxy from threats like the Zorathians. It had once been a shining beacon of unity, bringing together countless species in the fight for peace. But now, it was a mere shadow of its former self. The Council's fleet, once a mighty force, had been shattered in countless battles. Their forces were scattered across the galaxy, retreating from the unstoppable wave of Zorathian power. The once great leaders of the Council were now powerless to stop the oncoming storm. As the broadcast continued, images flashed on the screen. Images of worlds in flames, cities turned to ash, and entire species wiped out by the relentless Zorathian advance. The Council's final desperate message echoed in the background, pleading for any race capable of resisting the Zorathians to rise and defend what was left of the galaxy. The images cut to the Zorathian flagship, a colossal warship hovering in space above a key planet in the galaxy. Its massive silhouette blocked out the stars, casting a shadow over everything in its path. The flagship was an intimidating sight, black and jagged, with glowing red energy running through its hull like veins of molten lava. This ship, along with the rest of the Zorathian fleet, was a weapon of mass destruction. It was designed for one thing, to destroy. And destroy it did. Without warning, a massive beam of energy shot out from the flagship, striking the surface of the planet below. The beam was so powerful, so intense, that it turned the very ground into glass in an instant. Cities were incinerated, and mountains were reduced to dust. The death toll was in the millions, and the survivors were left in a nightmare of firestorms and collapsing buildings. The destruction was swift, and it was total. The Galactic Council's final hope had been shattered, and in that moment, the galaxy's most powerful forces, once proud and mighty, were left helpless. The Council had sent its fleets to defend the planet, but they were no match for the Zorathian might. As their ships exploded in the vacuum of space, the message was clear: the Zorathians could not be stopped. The broadcast faded to black, but the fear remained. There was no one left to defend the galaxy. Or so it seemed. Far across the galaxy, on Earth, another broadcast flickered to life. But this time, it wasn't the message of despair from the Galactic Council. Instead, the screen cut to the face of a human officer. Captain Elias Kane stood tall, his expression hard and resolute. His uniform bore the insignia of the United Forces of Earth, a symbol of humanity's strength and unity. He was a leader, a soldier, and now, the galaxy's last hope. Captain Kane had been watching the destruction unfold, the devastation that the Zorathians had caused, and he knew that Earth was the only force left that could make a difference. For years, humanity had been underestimated by the galaxy's other races. They were seen as primitive, weak, and unable to stand up to the advanced civilizations that ruled the stars. But they were wrong. The humans had built their fleet, not with the advanced technology of the Zorathians, but with their own ingenuity and determination. They had weapons, they had technology, and they had something no one else had, the will to fight for survival. Captain Kane's eyes burned with determination as he looked into the camera, the weight of the galaxy's survival resting on his shoulders. "It's time for humanity to step up," he said, his voice steady and filled with resolve. As he turned to face his crew, who had gathered around him in the command center, the tension was palpable. These were the best and brightest of humanity, a team forged in the fires of war, ready to fight against the overwhelming might of the Zorathians. But even they knew the odds were slim. They were about to face an enemy that had wiped out entire worlds without breaking a sweat. And yet, Captain Kane's words had inspired something within them. They were not afraid. "We may not have their technology," Kane continued, his voice growing stronger, "but we have something they don't, the heart of a warrior. We fight for Earth. We fight for the galaxy. And we will never give up." The crew nodded, their faces set with determination. They had lost everything, friends, families, and loved ones, thanks to the Zorathian onslaught. But now, they had a chance to make a difference, to stop the unstoppable. It was a bold plan. The human fleet, now assembled and ready, would journey to the heart of Zorathian space, where the flagship of the enemy waited. They would be outgunned, outmanned, and under-equipped compared to the might of the Zorathians. But Captain Kane believed that humanity had something more powerful than advanced technology: they had resilience. The final moments of the broadcast were filled with the sound of engines firing up as the human fleet prepared for launch. As Captain Kane boarded his flagship, the UFS Victory, the atmosphere on Earth was thick with anticipation. This was humanity's last stand. Just before the fleet departed, a transmission came in, a final message from the Galactic Council. They had received the news of humanity's decision to fight and had one message: do not sacrifice yourselves in vain. Captain Kane's eyes hardened. This wasn't just about survival anymore, it was about sending a message to the galaxy. Humanity would no longer be seen as weak. They would no longer be afraid of the Zorathians or anyone else. They would fight, and they would win. As the fleet of human warships soared into space, the camera panned out to show Earth one last time. The planet, battered and scarred from previous attacks, shone brightly against the dark backdrop of space. Earth was ready to fight. The fate of the galaxy rested in their hands. And with that, the first human fleet set its course towards the heart of Zorathian space, where an epic battle was about to unfold. The Zorathians had no idea what they were about to face. The humans were coming. The silence of space was shattered by a desperate plea, a signal that echoed across the stars, reaching Earth at the speed of light. It was a distress call from the Galactic Council, the once mighty organization that had served as the last line of defense against the galaxy's most dangerous forces. Now, it was a broken shell, desperately clinging to the hope that humanity could save them. The message was clear: the Zorathians, the terrifying alien race that had decimated planet after planet, were on the move again. They were heading towards the last remaining stronghold of the galaxy, a planet that housed the most powerful forces in the galaxy's defense, forces now shattered and hopeless. The Council had no power to stop them. Their fleets were destroyed, their military shattered, and they had nowhere left to turn. The only chance for survival lay with humanity, the species the galaxy had long considered too young, too weak, and too primitive to make a difference. But the Council had seen something the other galactic powers had missed. The humans had developed something that might just turn the tide, a new form of advanced technology that could challenge the might of the Zorathians. Back on Earth, Captain Elias Kane stood before the huge communication console in the command center of the United Forces of Earth. The room was filled with tension, the faces of his crew members as grim as his own. The message from the Council had been clear: humanity was their last hope. "I'm not sure we can win," Captain Kane said, his voice low, but resolute. "But if we don't try, then we've already lost." His crew, mostly a mix of seasoned soldiers and brilliant engineers, had spent months preparing for this day. They had worked tirelessly on the experimental technologies that were now humanity's greatest weapon. The UFS Victory, a massive warship unlike anything the galaxy had seen before, was the key. Equipped with a cloaking device that could make it invisible to enemy sensors, advanced AI systems to help control the ship's weapons, and energy weapons powerful enough to take on entire fleets, it was a marvel of human engineering. It was the first of its kind, and it was their only chance. With the last of the human fleet ready for launch, Captain Kane and his crew boarded the USS Victory, preparing for the unknown. The ship's massive engines roared to life, and as the crew settled into their battle stations, the tension in the air was palpable. Every single person on board understood the gravity of the situation. They were not just fighting for their lives, but for the entire galaxy. "Prepare for launch," Kane commanded. The ship slowly lifted off from Earth's surface, breaking through the atmosphere and into the vast expanse of space. The USS Victory was a symbol of humanity's resilience, a statement that they would not back down, no matter the odds. As they made their way out of Earth's orbit, Captain Kane watched the monitors as a new transmission came in. The Zerathian fleet, which had been advancing towards the heart of the galaxy, had arrived at a nearby system. They were just hours away from decimating the planet that housed what little remained of the Galactic Council's forces. "Looks like we're not the only ones in a hurry," Kane muttered under his breath. "Let's not keep them waiting." The Victory's engines roared as it sped through the void, its cloaking device activated. The crew was tense, knowing they would be entering a battle like nothing they had faced before. But they were determined to show the galaxy that humanity was not just a footnote in the history of the stars. They were about to become the galaxy's last hope. As they arrived at the nearby system, the sight of the Zerathian fleet was enough to make even the most hardened soldier pause. Massive ships, black as night and surrounded by energy shields, moved through space with deadly precision. Their weapons were unlike anything humanity had ever seen, massive beams that could obliterate entire cities with a single shot. Targeting systems online, the ship's AI, Aurora, spoke in a calm, measured voice. "Cloaking device activated. Weapons at 40%. "Wait for my signal," Captain Kane said, his eyes fixed on the screen. "This is our only shot. We hit them first, or we don't hit them at all." The crew held their breath as they drifted closer to the Zerathian fleet. The ship's cloaking device made them invisible to the enemy's sensors, but they couldn't remain hidden for long. They had to strike fast and hard. "Engage," Captain Kane ordered. With a sudden burst of energy, the USS Victory uncloaked and surged forward, launching a barrage of energy blasts at the closest Zerathian scout ship. The ship exploded in a brilliant display of lights and sparks, disintegrating into space. The Victory's energy weapons were powerful, but they could only take down the smallest of the Zerathian ships. The larger warships, however, would be much harder to defeat. But this was only the beginning. The human fleet had just entered the battlefield, and the Zerathians were not going to make it easy. In the distance, the massive warships began to turn, their weapons powering up. The battle was on. "Brace for impact," the crew shouted as the first of the Zerathian blasts hit the Victory's shields. The entire ship rocked as energy rippled through the hull, but the shields held firm. "Now it's our turn," Captain Kane said, gritting his teeth. The Victory's cloaking device had already been deactivated, and the ship was now fully visible. But the Zerathians had underestimated humanity's resolve. The crew worked in perfect unison as they launched more attacks, taking down one Zerathian scout ship after another. But the battle was far from over. As the Victory fought off wave after wave of enemies, Captain Kane knew that they couldn't keep up this pace forever. They were outnumbered, outgunned, and outclassed. But they had one advantage that the Zerathians couldn't understand: they were human. They fought with everything they had, no matter the cost. In the midst of the chaos, Captain Kane found a quiet moment with Lieutenant Jonas, a young crew member who had only recently joined the crew. Jonas had been silent for most of the mission, his eyes filled with fear as he witnessed the battle unfold before him. "You okay?" Captain Kane asked, his voice soft. Jonas looked at him, his face pale. "I'm scared, sir," he admitted. I lost my family when the Zorathians attacked. I know, Captain Kane interrupted gently. I lost my family too. But this isn't just about us. It's about everyone who's lost everything to these monsters. We fight because we can't let them win. We fight because they've taken everything from us, and now we're going to take it back. Jonas nodded, the weight of the words sinking in. His fear remained, but there was also something else now, determination. He wasn't just fighting for his family. He was fighting for the future. Let's do this, Jonas said, his voice firm. Captain Kane nodded. Let's win this. The victory roared through the battle, continuing its relentless assault on the Zorathian fleet. But there was no time to relax, no time to celebrate victories. The war was just beginning. And humanity's fight for survival had only just begun. As the victory prepared to push deeper into Zorathian territory, Captain Kane knew that this mission might be their last. The Zorathian fleet was vast, and they were already facing unimaginable odds. But the fight wasn't over. Not yet. The battle between humanity and the Zorathians raged on, but the odds were still stacked against the human fleet. The Zorathians, with their massive numbers and advanced technology, seemed unstoppable. But humanity had one key advantage: ingenuity. Though they couldn't compete with the sheer firepower and overwhelming force of the Zorathian armada, humans had something the aliens lacked: innovation. Captain Elias Kane knew that it was not enough to fight them head-on. If they were to survive, they would have to think differently, to fight smart. And that's exactly what they did. The human fleet began using guerrilla tactics to their advantage, relying on speed, surprise, and the environment itself. They had studied the Zorathian technology, reverse engineering their weapons and ships whenever possible. Every small victory, every bit of recovered tech, helped humanity understand their enemy a little more. The victory and the smaller human ships had been equipped with experimental cloaking devices and EMP bombs that could disable entire fleets. The Zorathians had never encountered a foe that fought so unpredictably. For the first time, they were caught off guard. One of the most daring operations came when the human fleet lured the Zorathian forces into an asteroid field. This was no ordinary battlefield. The field was dense, filled with floating rocks, large enough to be used as cover or obstacles. The human ships, small and nimble, used the environment to their advantage, dodging asteroid showers and hiding behind massive rocks, launching sneak attacks on the much larger Zorathian warships. The Victory, in particular, was a master of stealth. Its cloaking device allowed it to disappear and reappear without warning, striking at the heart of the Zorathian fleet and then vanishing again before the enemy could react. It was a battle of speed versus power, and humanity's speed was their greatest weapon. They couldn't compete head-to-head with the Zorathians in terms of raw strength, but they could outthink and outmaneuver them. In one particularly intense moment, Captain Kane watched as the Victory weaved through the asteroid field, expertly dodging chunks of rock that exploded in violent bursts as they collided with the massive Zorathian warships. The Victory launched an EMP bomb at a Zorathian destroyer, disabling its power systems in an instant. The crew of the Victory cheered, but their relief was short-lived. The disabled ship was quickly surrounded by other Zorathian vessels, and it wasn't long before the survivors were picked off one by one. The battle was far from over, but it was becoming clear that the humans were making an impact. The Zorathians, who had once thought of humanity as nothing more than an insignificant species, were starting to realize that these weak humans were more dangerous than they had ever anticipated. But the victory came at a high cost. As the battle raged on, Captain Kane received word from one of his closest friends on the crew, Commander Bonner. Bonner had been fighting valiantly, leading a squadron of human fighters in another part of the battlefield. The Zorathians, now fully aware of the human fleet's tactics, were retaliating with increased force. Bonner and his squadron had been surrounded by a much larger group of Zorathian ships. "We're outnumbered." Bonner's voice crackled through the comms, his tone filled with determination despite the odds. But we're not backing down. Not today. Captain Kane clenched his fist. Bonner was one of the toughest men he knew, a man who had been with him from the beginning of this war. The bond between them ran deep, and the thought of losing him was almost unbearable. But there was no time for hesitation. The battle needed all of them. Moments later, Bonner's ship exploded in a fiery blast as the Zorathians launched a devastating attack. The shockwave rippled through space, lighting up the dark void with brilliant flashes of orange and red. Captain Kane felt his stomach drop as he watched the explosion on the monitors. His friend, his comrade, was gone. It was the kind of loss that shook a man to his core, but there was no time to grieve. The war was far from over, and Bonner's sacrifice would not be in vain. The camera zoomed in on the explosion, capturing the fiery end of Bonner's ship. The surrounding Zorathian fleet launched a brutal orbital bombardment, their weapons lighting up the space around them, sending deadly shockwaves rippling through the battle. The explosion of Bonner's ship marked a turning point in the battle. The human fleet, shaken by the loss, became even more determined to push forward. They would honor Bonner's sacrifice by fighting harder than ever before. Bonner's final words echoed in Captain Kane's mind, "We don't give up. Not now, not ever." Those words became a rallying cry for the humans. They couldn't stop fighting. Not for themselves, not for their families, and certainly not for those who had already fallen. Humanity's resolve was ironclad, and no matter the odds, they would keep pushing forward. The battle would not end with their deaths, it would end with their victory. As the crew of the Victory carried on, the Zorathians launched their most devastating weapon yet, a massive mothership, larger than anything the humans had ever seen, entered the battlefield. It was a ship of unimaginable size, its weapons capable of obliterating entire fleets with a single volley. The Zorathians had grown tired of underestimating humanity. Now, they were sending their most powerful weapon to crush the human resistance once and for all. Captain Kane knew that this could be their final stand. They were outnumbered, outgunned, and the odds were stacked against them. But they had come this far, and they wouldn't stop now. Humanity had been underestimated from the start, but now it was time to show the galaxy the true strength of the human spirit. The mothership moved toward the human fleet, its massive cannons charging up. The Victory and the remaining human ships began to regroup, preparing for their last stand. The camera zoomed out, showing the vast expanse of space, the battle raging as both sides prepared for their final clash. "Ready the weapons," Captain Kane commanded, his voice steady despite the weight of what was to come. "This is it. We fight to the last breath. We don't give up. Not now. Not ever." The crew of the Victory stood firm. They knew what was at stake. The battle wasn't just for their survival, it was for the future of the galaxy. They would face the Zorathian mothership with everything they had, even if it meant giving everything in return. The final showdown had begun. As the two fleets closed in on each other, the fate of the galaxy hung in the balance. The humans had proven that they were more than just survivors, they were warriors. And they would not stop until they had defeated the Zorathians and secured their place in the stars. The final chapter of humanity's struggle was about to unfold. It was do or die. And there was no turning back, the time for talking and waiting had passed. The Zorathians, once confident in their superior technology and numbers, had now brought forth their most powerful weapon, the massive mothership. It was a terrifying sight, a massive structure floating ominously in space, its dark metallic surface reflecting the distant stars. This ship was the true embodiment of Zorathian might, equipped with devastating laser weapons and a nearly impenetrable force field that seemed to mock any attempt at retaliation. The very presence of the mothership sent a chill down the spine of every human on the battlefield. This would be the ultimate test of humanity's resolve. Captain Elias Kane and his crew knew that they were outgunned, outnumbered, and facing an enemy more powerful than they had ever imagined. The mothership was the key to victory or defeat. If it could be destroyed, the Zorathian fleet would collapse. But if it wasn't, the galaxy would be at the mercy of the aliens' terrifying might. Humanity's fate rested on a single, desperate plan. The humans had one weapon the Zarathians had underestimated: ingenuity. Using their advanced cloaking devices, the Victory and the other human ships launched a bold, high-risk operation. They would infiltrate the mothership, slip through its defenses, and strike at its heart. It was a plan so dangerous that most thought it would fail, but there was no other choice. This was humanity's final chance. As the human ships approached the mothership, cloaked and hidden, the tension was palpable. The massive warship loomed ahead, its colossal guns trained on the human fleet. But the humans were no longer playing by the Zarathians' rules. They had learned from their previous battles and now used their knowledge to outsmart their enemy. They slipped past the Zarathian defenses, undetected, and boarded the mothership. The operation was chaotic, intense, and fraught with danger. The human forces, aided by alien allies who had joined the cause, stormed the mothership, navigating its labyrinthine halls and fighting their way through numerous obstacles. The Zarathians were waiting for them, and they fought back with deadly force. Powerful Zarathian soldiers, clad in thick armor and armed with energy weapons, stood in their way. The humans, though outmatched in terms of strength and firepower, were relentless. They used their guerrilla tactics, their knowledge of the ship's layout, and their superior teamwork to overcome the powerful enemy soldiers. Inside the mothership, the humans fought tooth and nail against robotic sentinels, enormous machines programmed to destroy anything that posed a threat. The robots were relentless, their cold, metallic bodies moving with terrifying precision. The humans fought with everything they had, using explosives, close-quarters combat, and their advanced tech to disable the machines. It was a fight for survival, with every step forward costing lives. Among the human forces was Lieutenant Jonas, a young officer who had grown throughout the course of this war. He had started as a scared, unsure soldier, but now he had become a leader, someone the crew looked to for strength. Jonas had witnessed the horrors of the Zarathian invasion firsthand. He had lost his family, his home, and everything he loved. But through all the pain, Jonas had found his strength. He had learned that it was not about the battles they fought, but the reasons behind them. It was about humanity's unbreakable bond, their unity, and their determination to survive. As Jonas and his squad made their way deeper into the mothership, they reached the heart of the ship. The core where the planet-destroying weapon was housed. The bomb they carried could end the war, but it would require all of them to make it work. Just as Jonas began planting the explosive charges, a massive figure appeared in the doorway. The Zarathian general had arrived, and he was furious. The general towered over Jonas and his team, a cruel sneer twisting his features. He had long dismissed humanity as weak, insignificant, a species unworthy of standing against the might of the Zarathian Empire. He scoffed at the humans' attempts to fight back, mocking them for their feeble efforts. "You think you can defeat us? You are nothing more than ants beneath our feet," the general bellowed. Jonas stood firm, looking up at the towering alien with a sense of calm determination. He had heard the Zarathians' taunts countless times, but this time was different. This time, he had a response. "You may be powerful," Jonas said, his voice steady, "but you'll never understand what it means to fight for something greater than yourself. We fight for our families, for our homes, for each other. That's what makes us strong. That's what makes us unstoppable." The Zarathian general laughed, a hollow, mocking sound. "Your strength is nothing," he spat. "In the end, you will all die." But Jonas was resolute. With a single, defiant motion, he drew his weapon and launched a powerful energy blast directly at the general. The blast hit the general squarely in the chest, sending him sprawling to the floor. The Zarathian soldiers rushed forward, but Jonas and his team held their ground, fending off the attackers with fierce determination. The bomb was now planted. It was time to finish the mission. But as Jonas set the final charge, the situation took a turn for the worse. The alarms blared across the mothership as the Zorathians activated their planet-destroying weapon. It was a massive, terrifying device capable of wiping out entire planets in a single shot. The countdown had begun, and time was running out. The weapon was preparing to fire, and if it was allowed to complete its activation, the galaxy would be doomed. Jonas, his heart pounding, turned to his team. "We need to stop it. Now." The team rushed toward the control room, where the weapon's activation sequence was taking place. They fought off the remaining Zorathian soldiers and robotic sentinels, each passing second bringing them closer to the weapon. But the closer they got, the more intense the battle became. The Zorathians would do anything to stop them. Just as Jonas reached the control panel, the countdown hit its final seconds. Sweat poured down his face as he frantically worked to disable the weapon. His fingers flew across the controls, each movement critical to preventing the destruction of the galaxy. The tension was unbearable, and the fate of humanity rested on his shoulders. With a final, desperate push, Jonas hit the last key. The weapon's countdown halted, and the deadly energy beam was deactivated. The room fell silent as the humans realized that they had done it. The weapon was no longer a threat. But the battle was far from over. The mothership's core was unstable, and the bomb Jonas had planted would detonate soon. The crew had to escape before it was too late. As they ran through the ship, the countdown to the bomb's detonation began. Explosions rocked the ship, and debris rained down as they made their way to the escape pods. The crew fought their way out, determined to survive. With seconds to spare, they boarded the pods, escaping the doomed mothership just as it erupted in a massive explosion. The ship was gone. The Zorathian threat had been destroyed. The humans had won, but at a great cost. Many lives had been lost, and the damage was severe. But humanity had proven that no matter the odds, they would never give up. They had fought for their future, and they had secured it. As the escape pods drifted away from the wreckage of the mothership, the crew of the Victory looked out at the stars. They had saved the galaxy, but they had also shown that humanity was a force to be reckoned with. Their strength, unity, and resolve had defeated the greatest threat the galaxy had ever known. And in the process, they had earned their place among the stars. Time was running out. The bomb that could end the war was ticking away with an unforgiving countdown, its seconds slipping away like sand in an hourglass. Jonas and his team raced down the dark corridors of the Zorathian mothership, their footsteps echoing through the metal halls. The countdown to destruction was getting closer, but so was the danger. The Zorathians had realized what the humans were up to, and they were not going to let them succeed without a fight. The walls reverberated with the sound of gunfire as Jonas and his crew fought through wave after wave of deadly Zorathian soldiers. The battle seemed endless. The odds were stacked against them, every corner they turned brought more enemies, each one more ruthless and powerful than the last. Jonas had seen his comrades fall in battle before, but this time, the stakes were higher. This mission wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about securing humanity's place in the galaxy. If they failed, everything they had fought for would be lost. As the countdown clock ticked down, Jonas knew that there was no time for hesitation. They had to reach the control room, plant the final bomb, and destroy the mothership. The Zorathians were closing in, but they were determined to push forward, no matter what. The tension in the air was palpable. The bomb's timer was ticking relentlessly, and with each passing second, Jonas felt the weight of responsibility growing heavier. He had seen the Zorathians' devastation firsthand, his family, his home, everything was gone because of their ruthless quest for power. This was their chance to make it right, to stop them once and for all. But at what cost? Jonas pushed the thought from his mind. There was no time to dwell on what might happen. The mission came first. As they neared the control room, Jonas could see the final stretch ahead. The last few soldiers were still fighting, trying to stop them from reaching their target. The humans fought back with everything they had. Each battle was hard fought, but they kept moving, inching closer to the control room. When they finally reached it, the room was filled with Zerathian soldiers, waiting for them. The humans didn't hesitate. They launched their final assault, determined to push through. Explosions rang out, and weapons fired in all directions. It was a chaotic, dangerous battle, but Jonas knew what they had to do. Get to the core. Jonas shouted, rallying his team as they charged into the heart of the room. The control panel stood just ahead, a sleek, intimidating piece of technology that controlled the weapon of mass destruction. The Zerathian soldiers fought furiously to keep them back, but the humans were relentless. Jonas and his crew fought their way through, using everything at their disposal to keep the enemies at bay. Just as Jonas reached the control panel, the door to the room slammed shut behind them. A massive Zerathian general appeared, his eyes burning with anger. He sneered at Jonas and his team, his voice dripping with disdain. You are nothing. Weak, insignificant insects trying to challenge the might of the Zerathian Empire. You cannot win. Jonas stood his ground, his heart racing but his mind focused. We fight for something bigger than you'll ever understand, Jonas said, his voice steady, despite the chaos around him. We fight for our families, for our homes, for each other. We fight for survival. And we will not lose. The general's laughter echoed in the room. He stepped forward, raising his weapon. But just as he did, Jonas took a deep breath, focusing on the mission at hand. He knew what needed to be done. He knew the only way to ensure the bomb would go off was for him to stay behind. With a quick motion, Jonas turned and slammed the detonation switch. The countdown to the bomb's detonation began. But as the timer started, the general rushed toward Jonas, his weapon aimed at him. The two locked eyes, and in that moment, Jonas made a choice. He wasn't going to make it out alive. With the bomb set to destroy the Zerathian mothership, Jonas knew he had to stay behind to ensure it went off. There was no time to argue, no time to run. He would not allow the Zerathians to stop them. With one final glance at his team, Jonas activated the ship's self-destruct sequence, ensuring that the bomb would trigger the final explosion. As the explosion began, the room filled with the deafening sound of destruction. The Zerathian's weapon began to activate, its power surging. The humans had only seconds to escape before everything came crashing down. Jonas turned to his team. Get out of here, he yelled. It's too late for me. You have to survive. With no time to waste, the remaining humans sprinted for the escape pods, leaving Jonas behind. His sacrifice was the final step in their victory. His death would mean that the galaxy could live on, free from the Zerathian threat. As his team rushed out of the room, Jonas knew that this was the only way to save them. He had done what he had set out to do. His sacrifice would be the spark that ignited humanity's victory. The bomb detonated with a blinding flash of light that seemed to tear apart the fabric of space itself. The entire mothership erupted in a massive explosion, a shockwave rippling through the surrounding system. The force of the explosion sent shockwaves through space, obliterating everything in its path. The Zerathian fleet was decimated in an instant, their ships reduced to smoldering debris. The once mighty mothership, the source of so much destruction, was now nothing but a burning wreck in the void. The explosion was so intense that it caused a stellar collapse, sending the shattered pieces of the mothership and the debris from the battle flying into space. The shockwave spread outward, creating a fiery storm of destruction that lit up the dark expanse of space. The battle had been won, but at a great cost. As the escape pods containing the human crew drifted away from the wreckage, Captain Kane stared out into the stars. He could hardly believe it. They had done it. The Zerathians were gone. The galaxy was safe. But the victory came with a heavy price. Jonas was gone. His bravery, his sacrifice, would never be forgotten. Jonas gave everything for this, Captain Kane said, his voice thick with emotion. He gave his life to ensure our future. We will honor him, always. The bond between the human crew and their alien allies had grown stronger throughout the war. They had fought side by side, each learning from the other, and now, as they looked toward the future, they knew they would never forget what they had accomplished. Their unity, their determination, and their unwavering belief in each other had won the day. As they drifted through space, the humans and their alien allies shared a moment of silence. The galaxy was forever changed. Jonas had sacrificed everything for the greater good, and his legacy would live on. The humans had proven that, no matter the odds, they would always fight for what was right. They would never back down, never give up, and never forget the cost of their victory. In the end, the greatest weapon humanity had wasn't their ships or technology, it was their unity, their strength, and their unbreakable spirit. And as the survivors looked out at the stars, they knew that they had earned their place among the greatest civilizations the galaxy had ever known. They had fought, they had sacrificed, and they had won. With the death of the Zerathian Empire, the galaxy was finally free. The terror that had long cast its shadow over the stars was no more. The once feared Zerathians, whose very name struck fear into the hearts of the galaxy's inhabitants, were now nothing but a memory, their fleet scattered, their mothership reduced to a mass of burning debris in space. The devastation they had caused was immense, but so was the triumph that followed. The humans had proven that, against all odds, they could not only survive but thrive. The galaxy, now looking at Earth with new eyes, saw humanity as more than just a fledgling species, it saw them as heroes, as a new force to be reckoned with. The aftermath of the war was not easy. It never was. The stars were still littered with the wreckage of the battle, and many civilizations still bore the scars of the Zerathian assault. But Earth was at the heart of the rebuilding process. The human fleet, having faced the greatest of challenges, had not only survived but emerged stronger, their bonds with their alien allies more unbreakable than ever. Together, they worked to restore order, to rebuild the systems that had been shattered, and to offer a sense of hope where there had once been none. Captain Kane stood on the bridge of one of humanity's warships, looking out at the stars. He had seen the worst of what the galaxy had to offer, the brutality of the Zerathians, the loss of comrades, and the unimaginable destruction. But he had also witnessed something extraordinary. Humanity had risen from the ashes of their past, proving their strength, their ingenuity, and their unwavering spirit. The Zerathians were gone, and with them, the fear that had gripped the galaxy for so long. Now, the question was, what would happen next? The galaxy was vast, its problems many, and its future uncertain. But there was a new sense of hope in the air, a sense of possibility. The humans, once the underdogs in a galaxy ruled by more advanced civilizations, were now seen as a force for good. The rest of the galaxy had seen the resilience, the courage, and the sacrifices humanity had made in the face of unimaginable odds. They had earned the respect of every species that had once looked down on them. And they had earned the right to lead. "We've done it," Captain Kane said, his voice steady. "But our journey doesn't end here. We've proven ourselves to the galaxy. Now, we rebuild. Now, we lead." The message of humanity's triumph had spread far and wide, echoing through every corner of the galaxy. Earth was no longer just a planet on the edge of the stars. It was a symbol of what could be achieved when determination and unity came together. The human fleet had set out to protect their home, but they had ended up protecting the entire galaxy. Now, other civilizations sought to forge alliances with Earth, to share in their knowledge, their technologies, and their vision for the future. The leadership that Earth had shown was undeniable. But Captain Kane knew that with leadership came responsibility. The galaxy was still fragile, still recovering from the wounds of the Zerathian invasion. There would be new challenges ahead, new threats, new dangers, but humanity had proven they could face whatever came their way. With the support of their allies, they would navigate these new challenges, setting a course for peace, prosperity, and unity. As humanity's fleet prepared to leave the orbit of Earth, heading toward new frontiers, Captain Kane stood at the helm of the flagship, gazing out at the stars. It was a sight that had once filled him with uncertainty, with fear of the unknown. But now, it filled him with hope. They were no longer the underdogs in this vast, dark galaxy. They were the guardians. The protectors. The ones who had stood up against tyranny and won. "Captain," one of his officers said, breaking his thoughts. "We're ready to move out. The fleet is prepared for the next mission." Kane nodded, his eyes still on the stars. "Then let's move forward. There's still much to do." The humans were not content to rest on their laurels. They had learned that victory was not the end, it was just the beginning. They had witnessed the cost of their triumph, and they knew that they had to remain vigilant, ready to defend the peace they had fought so hard to achieve. The galaxy was vast, and there were still many unknowns out there. But for the first time in a long while, humanity was no longer afraid of the future. They had taken their place as a powerful force in the galaxy, and they were ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. As the human fleet sailed toward the unknown, a sense of unity filled the hearts of the crew. The alliances they had forged with other species were stronger than ever, and the bond they shared with their alien allies had only deepened. The human spirit, once thought to be fragile and weak, had proven to be a force that could not be broken. Through sacrifice, through innovation, and through sheer determination, humanity had found its place among the stars. The final scene of the story showed Earth, a planet that had once been isolated and threatened, now standing tall in the heart of the galaxy. The human fleet, a symbol of their strength and resilience, moved forward into new territories, bringing hope and stability to a galaxy once torn apart by war. Their technology, their bravery, and their unity set them apart, and they were now the leaders of a new era, a time of peace and cooperation, a time when the galaxy could finally heal from the scars of the past. As the camera panned out, Earth grew smaller, but its light shone brighter than ever. The galaxy was full of possibilities now. The humans had proven their worth, and with that, they had shown the galaxy that even in the darkest times, hope could emerge. The message was clear: no matter how fierce the storm, no matter how impossible the odds, humanity would rise. The galaxy now knew that no one would ever underestimate the strength of Earth again. The story ended with a powerful image of the fleet sailing into the unknown, a beacon of hope for the future. Humanity had faced its greatest challenge and emerged victorious. But the true victory wasn't just in the defeat of the Zorathians, it was in the unity, the sacrifice, and the resilience that had defined humanity's fight. It was in the way they had come together to protect not just their own world, but the entire galaxy. And as the camera zoomed out, revealing a galaxy full of promise and hope, the message was clear: the age of humanity had begun, and the stars were now theirs to explore, protect, and lead.